Jurassic World Rebirth dropped a month ago, and it's been polarized. Every Jurassic Park tier list I see either throws it in the bottom tier or places it way near the top, so I wanted to give my take on it. Because honestly, I get the issues people have, but I also think there's a lot to appreciate here. Obviously, spoiler warning. I'm gonna be honest, this movie actually got me hooked into the franchise. It got me watching and rewatching the older films and even picking up the books. I just finished Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, which is incredible by the way. Highly recommended to fans and non-fans of the franchise. So yeah, while I know this film has its flaws, I think it's good, and today I want to defend it a little, while still being fair about its weaknesses. I'm going to be approaching this film in two sections, the humans and the dinosaurs, while addressing the flaws and highlights of each. Before we even meet the main cast of humans, a lot of people criticize the film's opening scene, where a scientist Snicker Rapper ultimately causes the D-Rex to escape. At first glance, it's a little bit goofy, like a contrived plot device just to get the D-Rex out of the lab. Now, the fact that a rapper could shut down a whole lab is pretty wild, but I actually really like this moment because it ties back to Ian Malcolm's chaos theory from the original Jurassic Park novel and film. The idea that trying to contain these creatures is inherently flawed, and that even the smallest mistake can spiral into massive consequences. In this case, a simple candy wrapper leads to the D-Rex's escape. The film really splits its human cast into two groups. First, there's Zora's crew, which is Scarlett Johansson's character, along with Loomis, Martin, Duncan, and the rest of the team. And then there's the family unit of Ruben, Teresa, Xavier, and Isabella. One of the biggest criticisms is that these characters just aren't that interesting, and honestly, I agree. None of them are written with the depth of the original Jurassic Park cast, and they definitely don't come close to the more nuanced characterizations in the book. They're straightforward archetypes with clear-cut motivations that rarely deviate. The troubled hero who ultimately does the right thing, the wide-eyed scientist in awe of the dinosaurs, the obvious villain, the redemption seeker, the innocent child, and so on. Very clear archetypes. For example, Zora redeemed herself by open sourcing the dinosaur DNA, Duncan finds closure with Isabella, compensating for his inability to save his son, Xavier proves himself as reliable, if a little goofy and lazy at times. They all serve their roles and keep the plot moving, which to be fair is all I expect from the Jurassic Park humans. That said, Loomis stood out to me. His enthusiasm for the dinosaurs, his bravery in tackling these things completely outside his comfort zone, and the way he pushed Zora to make the right choices all made him fun to watch. Every time he was on screen, I enjoyed it, except for the mental running gag, especially that first joke where Zora and Martin wait on his decision while he just silently chomps away. It was awkward, and the 3 times I saw the movie, it only got light chuckles from the audience. Another criticism people have is that the main character should have died, and that it was too obvious who would make it to the end. I agree, but to be fair, this has always been a Jurassic Park issue. There was never a universe where Grant, Ellie, Ian, Hammond, Tim, or Lexi were gonna die in the first film. That predictability is part of the franchise. Still, it's one of the reasons I prefer the Jurassic Park novel, which wasn't afraid to kill off certain characters, even though they retconned some of that. But Rebirth definitely should have taken bigger risks with the human cast. I'll also acknowledge that in the original film, the deaths at least felt meaningful. They served the story and helped shape the tone. In Rebirth, the deaths didn't really carry that same weight. So yes, the human characters here are weak. They lack the synergy between people and dinosaurs that made the original so compelling. Unfortunately, that magic has only been achieved once in the first Jurassic Park. At the end of the day, the humans are mostly just vessels to move us along to the real stars of the show. After the opening scene, we get a title card explaining the public has lost interest in dinosaurs and they've been dying off everywhere outside the equator. Honestly, I can't believe they're sticking with this plot point. These creatures have only been back for like 30 years and the public didn't even get full access to them until Jurassic World. So losing interest this quickly feels absurd. Maybe after a century you can make that case, but even then, zoos still exist for a reason. It's just a dumb plot point. At least in Jurassic World it made a little more sense. Attendance plateaued, and in the desperation for endless growth they created the Indominus Rex, but here it just doesn't make any sense. The other part of the title card, that dinosaurs are dying everywhere but the equator, is just as dumb. It basically abandons the whole dinosaur in the wild setup, which could have been fascinating for future films. Imagine seeing them in deserts, mountains, or other ecosystems outside the jungle. Instead, that potential is written off. Maybe they'll retcon it later, but for now, it feels like a wasted opportunity. That said, once the dinosaurs actually show up, they really show up. The designs are some of the best we've ever gotten. The new Spinosaurus and Mosasaurus looks amazing, especially the Mosasaurus. They finally gave him counter shading, the iconic tail fluke, a new color scheme, and just an overall badass look. I loved it so much that I even had an old birthday theme around him, like I was an 8-year-old. The first third of the movie, with the Jaw-style Mosasaurus chase, was really fun, and while the symbiotic relationship between the Mosasaurus and Spinosaurus was a little goofy, I appreciated the attempt to show prehistoric creatures and biological relationships instead of just standalone monsters. That's something this movie actually does really well, treating the dinosaurs as animals instead of just monsters. The best example is the T-Rex ref sequence. We see Amber, which is the name of the T-Rex by the way, relaxing after a meal, sleeping, drinking from the river, even just watching a pterosaur fly overhead. When the yellow raft catches her eye, she follows out of curiosity, not out of bloodlust. It was a great, slower paced moment that made her feel like a real animal with instincts, not just this violent monster that we keep seeing the dinosaurs being characterized as. Of course, not every dinosaur inclusion worked. Dolores, for instance, felt unnecessary. She was clearly intended to sell a bunch of merch in Baby Yoda fashion, and so they just give her the shallow role as a coping mechanism for Isabella, and as proof that not all dinosaurs are scary. I doubt she's gonna sound anywhere near the amount they want, but that won't stop them from trying. The D-Rex on the other hand got flack for being underused and for its inconsistent scaling. Both criticisms are fair, but personally, I didn't mind. I actually liked that he wasn't overexposed and didn't end the movie with yet another T-Rex fight. Still, I wish they had leaned harder into his concept as a creature in constant pain, a symbol of genetic manipulation gone too far. That angle would have added real weight to his presence, so it sucks they didn't go with that. But where the D-Rex took a step back, the rest of the dinosaurs carried the film. The Mosasaurus chase was thrilling, the Titanosaurus sequence was quite epic, the T-Rex raft scene was a fun adaptation of the same scene from the book, and the Quetzalcoatlus DNA retrieval might feature the most horrific death in the series. The Mutodon D-Rex finale was a solid way to end the film. On top of that, the film sprinkled in other prehistoric creatures besides dinosaurs, like the Dunkleosteus cameo or the random amphibian, alongside background dinosaurs like the Ankylosaurus, Martin Encounters, or the Dilophosaurus scavenging a Parasaurolophus. All those little touches made the island feel alive to me, so when people say there aren't enough dinosaurs in Rebirth, I have to completely disagree with that. Not only were there plenty, but they were presented with some of the best designs and most beautiful cinematography in the franchise. Just look at the broad daylight T-Rex shots, they're stunning. It's not a perfect Jurassic Park movie, but it's a strong entry and a huge step up from Poopy Dominion.